Got it.
Okay, hi everyone, my name's Kushi and me and Novera will be moderating the session. So if you guys have any additional questions, you can just write them in the chat and we'll ask them at the end. So to start, Anne, we just wanted to talk a bit about your early career. So how did you decide to enter this career and go into cybersecurity?
Well, I didn't take a very traditional path, that's for sure. I have been working for a number of years in healthcare, but in dentistry actually, and at around the time of the 2000s to the 2010s, a lot of healthcare was moving towards taking away paper charts and making everything about digital health records. So when you go to the doctor, instead of writing things on paper, they started to decide, okay, we're going to put things into the computer. We're going to use digital forms of X-ray and pictures and so on. And so what happened was we were part of a team that were taking these types of healthcare practices and turning the paper into digital. And at the same time, I was realizing that this was going to present a new need to protect this type of information. And if you go to the dentist, you probably give them a lot of information. You don't think about, you don't really care if anyone hacks into their computer and finds out stuff about your teeth. But sometimes you're giving them, or oftentimes you're giving them a lot of information that is things about your medications, about any surgeries that you might have had, treatments, diagnoses, things to do with mental health. These are all things that become part of your health record. And so I realized that a lot was going to have to be done to protect these health records. And so my brother and I decided, well, somebody's going to have to create a company and create a set of types of tools to be able to protect these types of health records. And these smaller types of, like your doctor or your dentist or your optometrist, they don't have a lot of money like a hospital would to do this. And so we figured out how to do this in a way that they could afford, but also become experts to help them out.
Okay, that's cool. So I guess, what did you wish you knew when you began your career that you know right now? And that could have
Oh, I think I wish I knew how hard it was going to be. So not only do I work in cybersecurity, but I also became an entrepreneur. Like I decided to create my own company from this at the same time. And if I circle back just a little bit, I did not really have a computer background. In fact, I went all through university without even owning a computer. It was possible to have a computer back then, but I wasn't in a financial position to have one the way other people could. They were very, very expensive. I mean, I know they're expensive now too, but I didn't grow up with technology in the same way. On top of that, I didn't really take computers in school. I had an arts background and a bit of science. So I had to really figure out how to build a company, how to solve some pretty big challenging problems, while at the same time really just learning all about cybersecurity at the same time. I mean, I knew it was something that needed to be, it was a problem that needed to be fixed. That was, providing security of digital or like data. But I kind of had to go back to school while I was building a company all at the same time. I wouldn't recommend that. Except for the girls that are on here probably have that kind of ability, because I mean, you're showing up for stuff like this, right? But I think I wish I knew. Actually, if I had known, so this is actually kind of funny, because I think if I had known how hard it was going to be, I might not have done it. But I think I might have been able to plan it a little better, so that instead of taking 14 years, maybe it would have taken 6 or something like that, right? So yeah, good question though.
So you said you had an arts background. So How did you really decide which college or like university or post-secondary you wanted to go to?
So for me, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a teacher. So I applied to schools for that to happen. And then when I got there, I thought, oh, I don't really know if this is for me. I dabbled in environmental science for a little bit because I thought, that was going to be something, very important. And of course it still is today, and probably could have had a good life if I had gone that way. I think I didn't really find my purpose until much later on. I ended up actually going back to school after I finished university and got into dentistry. Of course, now I work with healthcare practices, and I also work with small businesses. But I didn't really have a clear path. I didn't really know. I just kept working hard and trying a lot of different things along the way until I found something that really fit. And uh, if you're lucky enough at your age to know exactly what you want, that's good. If you're not, I think it's good to just do what I did, and that is just keep an open mind about trying lots of things and just working as hard as you can at each thing, but knowing also when to try out the next thing, right?
Hmm. Did you have any like role models growing up? And if you did, who were they?
Um, my parents, yeah, as much as through my teenage years, we didn't always see eye to eye on everything, but both of my parents were extremely hardworking people. They were really into equality. So my dad also cooked and cleaned. My mom believed that it was as important for me to learn how to use a hammer as a sewing machine. So really, they both paved the way for me to understand that really I could do anything I wanted. It didn't matter if it was a traditional or a non-traditional role. My mother was very well educated. She had university degrees. She was a teacher. But my father came from really nothing. He at many points in his life um, didn't they didn't even know where food was coming from. So he was a very scrappy guy. He really learned to work through a lot of adversity, and I think his determination was really important for me to see, and his ability to uh, work hard and get whatever he needed or wanted for his family, regardless of the fact that he only had a grade 8 education. But also that combined with my mother's knowledge and understanding of how powerful education was, both together really was very important to helping me um, really know and be able to do all the things that I've been able to do. So I was lucky that I had it very close to home.
Were there any challenges that you might have faced along the way? And if you did, how did you overcome them?
I'd say specifically to cybersecurity or even the IT world, when I came into it, there were hardly any women in it. That's especially why I find it so important to support what Doina's doing and what all of you girls are doing by showing up. It's changed in the last 5 years. When I go to a conference now, any type of IT or cybersecurity conference, I see a lot more women. It's very exciting to me. But in the earlier days, like 10 or 15 years ago, it was quite often that I'd be the only woman there, and sometimes would be mistaken for my brother's, wife that was there to take notes, or it was hard to be viewed as a serious person in the industry at all. So coming up against that, I always kind of felt like I had to just be a little bit better. I always had to have a little bit, more courses under my belt, more credentials, and have a very strong voice to say, hey, I'm here, I'm creating things too, right? And I'm hoping that through doing that, it's helping to make it a little easier for the younger ones because we need more women, and we need all kinds of brains in this industry, not just those that can code, but those who do what I do most of the time, and that is teach what cybersecurity is and what it means to really everyone working with a computer.
So I'll be asking questions about your workday, and you mentioned that there's hardly any women in cybersecurity, so I'm sure that many people aren't really aware of what a typical workday looks like, since it's a bit of an unconventional career. So what does a typical workday look like for you?
So today, what it looks like is often people are reaching out to me to get answers about what types of risks there might be in their business. We set up things like what are called risk assessments. So we would look at the types of information they have, the types of computer systems they have, the level of education that the team members working with that customer data or that patient data looks like. And we would look for wherever there might be some gaps, where we're basically trying to find those gaps before the bad guys do, before the cyber criminals find them. And then a lot of that is facilitated by my brother, who is my co-founder, and then a couple of other people that work with us that are cybersecurity experts. My role ends up being primarily focused around education. So what I'll do is I'll look at an organization after this risk assessment has been done, or even sometimes it'll be an organization that will need to have their users educated about what not to do with an email. What does a phishing email look like? What does a scam look like? So you've all got those emails where it comes in and it says it looks like Netflix or it looks like PayPal. I think your age group is pretty good at spotting scams, but there's this other age group that's somewhere in between you and me and my age that needs help with that. And then there's a lot of regulatory stuff that has to happen. So in Canada, we have privacy laws and regulations, and that means that people working with customer data or client data or patient information, they need to know how to operate safely with it. And so when I do those types of training programs, I'm able to certify that those organizations or those companies have received the training they need to know how to work properly with our data. Because we hear about it every day about these breaches. Many of you may have already had one or more of your online accounts breached, right? Like or the company that you're involved with has been breached. So my job is to try to help everyone understand how to prevent those breaches from happening.
That's awesome. And that also seems like tons of responsibility though. So what are some challenges you face in your day-to-day work life?
I think especially in the last year and a half, people have seen the need for cybersecurity education has increased, because COVID especially has forced people to work at home, but they're working at home without the same kind of firewalls, even the same kinds of computers and protections that they might have working in an office. You guys probably had a lot more virtual learning that you were doing too. This presented a whole set of challenges with regards to, I guess, how do you do exams, or how do you do, there was a lot of things that had to change very quickly. So it was harder for us to make sure that things were operating in a secure way when so much more hacking was going on, so much more vulnerability because of where people were working. We had to create new types of education to help people understand what it means when you're working from home, and you can't just use a regular email address to send a lawyer's document, or like a number of different things that way. So I think that we're still at a stage also where people know they need this type of education, but their employers don't always have the budget for it. Um, there's lots that you can learn on your own, but it's almost like you don't know what you don't know yet, right? So those are things that happen almost every day. People want the information or they know that they need it, but allocating enough time to learn it, or even working for a company that can afford to have proper training, is still an ongoing battle.
So apart from the challenges that you face, what do you enjoy most about your job, or what are you looking forward to right now?
Well, I think what I love the most is that it's never going to be solved, which sounds bad. I mean, my job exists because cybercrime exists. But whenever I can go a full year and have my 1,000 plus clients have not been attacked in a way where they've lost any data, that's exciting to me. I love being able to use new technologies all the time, even if I don't inherently understand how they were built. I love that we can use AI. I love that we can use machine learning. I love that there's these specific types of controls that we can put in place so that regardless of how much people know, they can't get into trouble on social media by downloading something wrong, because we can block it. I love the constantly changing environment. Now, the challenge is that as much as AI is working very well to protect us, the bad guys have AI also. So it's an ongoing race, right? To see who wins. Of course, it would be lovely if we didn't have to worry about any of this. But especially if you're in your teenage years right now, there's a lot of years going forward that the more we can do to make sure that you're not completely exposed, the better. So if I can be a part of making sure that some of the most sensitive information about you guys is not out there floating around the internet for public consumption, then that's a big win. That's a big win for me.
That's awesome. Like even myself, I'm learning so much about cybersecurity, which I didn't know, and I'm sure everyone else is as well. I think you mentioned that you weren't in this line in the beginning. So is there something that particularly surprised you about your job when you first started?
I think I had, by the time I had sort of reached my 30s, I was well entrenched in the pharmaceutical industry, actually, but it was sort of transitioning. A lot of things were becoming a lot more innovative and a lot more digital that way. I think I've always been a bit of a techie, but I think I really I underestimated myself and my abilities. I think I was held down quite a bit because I thought, oh, how audacious is that? Like, how can I possibly go into cybersecurity? I just have an arts degree. I'm just this, or I'm just that. But when I really dug in, I found that there are so many places for people who aren't necessarily math whizzes, that people who can understand the technology enough to be great storytellers and teachers. I realized, that's where I belong. But I think the self-doubt thing was holding me back for a number of years. And then when I finally went out and did my first certification and did really well, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I do belong here, right? So, and I guess in there is baked in a little bit of messaging for all of you, that because I don't know that there's a person that walks the earth that doesn't battle with self-doubt, right? And what I realize is the more you just push it, the more you do, the more your toolkit is building you for the next challenge. Resilience, we're not born with it. It only comes from pushing ourselves that little bit further and that little bit further. And I sort of view it as a toolkit, that every time I come up against a new one, a new thing that seems a little bit hard, I remember, oh, okay, well, I did that thing, so I should be able to do this thing. right? But I guess that's the surprise, is that there's a tipping point. It feels hard, it feels hard, it feels hard. You get it, and then it's like, so.
Okay, next off, we can talk a bit about, skills and personal growth. So to start off, what skills do you think are important for someone that's interested in a career like yours, or even in STEM in general?
Well, what's interesting, I part of what I just talked about was the for myself is thinking, why the heck do I belong here? How can I belong here because of this, not having, a strong math background or engineering and so on. What was so marvelous was I came to know Hervolution because somebody nominated me back when Doina had the Canada 150 women in STEM. And when I showed up to the conference, there was this concept of STEAM, and I was like, well, what is STEAM? I mean, I know what STEM is, but what is STEAM? There's a place for us. There's a place for me here. There, arts belongs in here. How can that be? That's not going to make the engineers very happy. That's not going to make the math majors very happy. But there's such a need, such a huge need for educators. There's such a huge need for the creative people to come in, the storytellers to come in and take what some of you I know are really brilliant in, you're going to be engineers, you're strong in math, you're going to be awesome coders. There might be a few of you in there that you understand it enough, but it's not what gets you all excited every morning. But understanding what that powerful technology can do and relating that to, like, today, what it's all about is having large corporations, hospitals, governments understanding the threats that are going on and how to protect from them. That information doesn't get to them through the guy behind, or the woman behind the keyboard that's creating the solution to solve it. It comes from those of us who can be a bridge to explaining why the technology is important, explaining actually how to use it. So I think that what's really great is that there's really, in this industry, no matter what kind of place you come from, there's a place for you in it. Whether you're the one that's building the solution or researching what those solutions can do, or just using those solutions or teaching about it. Like, really, there's a place for everyone, especially a place for women. Women are doing awesome in project management, in teaching, they're in big corporations. If you watched just last week, they had the IT World Canada top 20 women in cybersecurity awards. There's some really impressive people there, and they're not all my age. There's some younger ones too that are doing huge things. It's amazing.
What are some more maybe personal skills that you would say are essential for success in your field?
Well, cyber seems like a very serious industry, but what I would say has made me really successful in it probably is just having kind of a sense of humor about it too. Being, what do you say, accessible, relatable, bringing in those soft skills, your personality, right? These are things that nobody can teach you. You can learn technical things, but I would say this is the secret of all business success, really, not just cybersecurity. It really lives everywhere. That is letting your true self shine. Those are things no one can teach you how to relate to others. No one can teach you the ability to use humor, or the fact that you girls already are such great conversationalists and interviewers here today. This is who you are, right? Bringing and allowing and learning that who you are belongs in your career. Yeah, and finding things that are really that you're passionate about. And when you do that, it shows, right?
Yeah, that's a really nice way to think about it. Do you have any maybe advice for young women that are interested in STEM that you want to tell us?
Well, my first piece of advice would be to show up here, which you've already done. Follow whatever's going on with Doina and the other girls that have been, in the programs before you. I saw some amazing presentations last year. I'm sure you're all doing those same things. I mean, I could say the same thing as other people say. Don't give up and so on. I'd say don't give up, but I would also say, whatever you think you can do, you can probably do it, right? But sometimes it's a couple of steps away from wherever you are at that very point. And in my experience, what I've noticed is every time I've had a major breakthrough, it was right kind of like just one step past where I pretty much had a breakdown, where I thought, what am I doing? This is no, and now I'm here, and what do I do now? But then like the next day or something, very close thereafter, really where the magic happens is to me, in my experience, has always been kind of right after we've pushed ourselves to that point where we thought we can't. There's just is right on that other side. So I'd say that's very important.
What do you think someone should expect when they start their career education in STEM?
Well, there's so many different avenues. I haven't been an engineering student. I haven't been a computer science student. I think today too, it's very different. There's a lot more females in these types of programs. I think you can expect that you're going to have to work hard. But again, I think that's sort of not necessary for me to say, because anyone who's on here, like Doina said earlier, you're taking part of your summer to further yourselves. The people that need this advice are probably the ones that maybe are not on this, but might be watching from the outskirts. You're going to have to work hard. For me, what I try to do when I'm helping anyone, that's just going through school is figuring out, what you're really passionate about. What can you do what makes you happy and still make a good living, right? And listening to our soul, listening to ourselves. In some respects, I'm glad I didn't do what I wanted to do when I was in high school, because that was to be a horse trainer, and I would not have made any money. I would have gone broke trying to feed them, I think. So I was glad that my parents forced me to go to university and to actually get an education, even though I'd say that that degree didn't do me anything, except it validated my ability to take further steps in my education. But I think I would always be talking about people following their heart and do big things, and don't be afraid to do big things. But my hope is that nobody gets stuck doing things that are boring and just trading their soul for money, because I've also done that, and that doesn't feel great.
Yeah, that's really true that you should just follow what you're passionate about. I agree. So I guess that's all the questions we have prepared. If anyone has any other questions, you can put it in the chat and Novera can ask them.
Alternatively, you guys can unmute yourself and ask the questions.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I have a question.
Hi.
My name is Suzanne, and I just wanted to know about nanotechnology. Do you know if it's being used a lot these days in cybersecurity? Because in physics, when we learned about quantum mechanics, we learned about nanotechnology and how when like tiny particles move around, you know that something has been breached. Do you know about that? And is it starting to get used? Does it have a place in cybersecurity these days, or is that something new?
if it has a place in cybersecurity, which it very might well exist, I'm going to have to say you are miles ahead of me, right? I can't answer that question with any competency. I don't have knowledge of that, but it sounds extremely interesting. So I think I'll be looking that up afterwards. I apologize for not having an answer, but now you've got me. Whoop, my brain's just. That's cool. So you've got a very cool background. You're gonna go places with all that, boy. That's great. It's hard to answer questions. It's hard to ask questions. There might be questions there. I know even me, who's a very outgoing person, I tend to sit there and not really put things forward so much.
That's okay. You guys can put them in the chat and we can ask the questions if you have questions.
So do you want me to tell you what my first job was? My first real job? Because this is,
yes.
we talked about resilience. And
actually, I was going to say, if you don't mind sharing your story so that the girls have a better understanding. I'm sure they got a lot from the questions that were asked, but just, your own version of your story and share that with them.
Yeah, well, Doina, I think you were at my TechTO talk, so I think you know this, but so we were talking about resilience earlier, and I learned it pretty quick. When I finished university, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I had some debt. I had pretty much, I had a degree, but it really didn't give me any supersonic skills. It was just, I finished, and I thought, what am I going to do? And I, in those days, you would go to the employment center and there'd be these little cards on a wall. And there was a company that was looking for people that had social sciences background to be what was called a family counselor. And I thought, oh, this is lovely. I can help people. And it was at a cemetery. So I thought, okay, I'm going to help people. When somebody dies, right? I'm gonna be there for them. I'm going to help them, make the arrangements, and it's going to be all lovely. And people are going to feel better, and at the worst time of their life. But when I got there, I found out that I had to phone people and say, hi, Mrs. Smith. I just wondered if you ever thought about prearranging your cemetery requirements. So what I thought I was going to be helping people at the worst time of their life, I was actually having to do telemarketing to sell graves. And it was horrible, but I needed the money. It was $300 a week. And back then that was a lot of money. And so I'd pick up the phone and I'd phone people. And of course, everybody said, what the heck? No, right? But I had to keep, they would come around and they'd circle around and they'd watch you all the time, and you had to be dialing and dialing. And back in those days, they had these phones, you had to this, and it had like dials, and I thought, this is terrible. What am I going to do? But I needed the money. I had some student loans, and so I thought, I can't stay here. And my friend worked in a dental office, and she said, okay, and just come and sit with me, see what you think of this. Maybe there's something in this industry that would work for you. So I went and I watched her for a few days, and I thought, oh, great, I'm going to become a dental hygienist. So I thought, this is good. It's good money. How hard can that be? There's just 32 teeth. All you have to do is clean them, no problem. But you had to become a dental assistant first, which is not a very glamorous job either. I mean, basically, you hold this tube that sucks people's spit. It's pretty gross, but that's how you had to do it. You had to take this course first. So I did that. Then I'm working as a dental assistant. I'm working with the dentist. I pass him the tools, or her the tools. I worked both with a male and a female dentist. And then I thought, oh, I don't want to be sitting here. I want to be the dentist. But then I thought, oh, well, I don't really want to go back to school for that long. Anyway, in the meantime, there was people that would come to this dental office and they would be selling all of the technology. And as I said to you earlier, the technology was really changing. Everything was analog back then. The phone was analog, booking was analog, taking the pictures inside the mouth was analog, and everything was kind of shifting. So I saw this trend happening at the time, and I thought, boy, I want to get in on this. So I started working in a company that did a lot of surgical stuff. So we were working with sort of implants that would replace teeth when they were missing, or some bone grafting kind of material that would help to regrow bone when it was missing. It was very exciting stuff, and then led right into this technology piece. To where I started back with the story earlier, and really became part of changing analog into the digital stuff, and then ultimately the cybersecurity. And the part of the story that I didn't tell, because I value the piece that I value the most about, and is the most rewarding about my days, is the teaching of it. But I was part of working with the development team to figure out the types of technologies that we would use that would work and be affordable enough in a smaller business. Because as you can imagine, big giant businesses and hospitals have way bigger budgets for the types of technologies and hiring the professionals that are needed to do this type of thing. And despite that, as you know, big companies are still being hacked, governments are still being hacked, hospitals are still being hacked. But the development and the advancement of things like automation and AI and machine learning technologies have been able to replace humans in a lot of aspects of cybersecurity. So, for example, you used to have to make sure that you ran your security updates. Like your iPhone will automatically update if you let it do so. But not too long ago, and still today, sometimes these updates will fail and need some intervention. Well, you can use automation for all of these things. So I became, very passionate about those types of technologies and the automation, and that really got me here today. So that's kind of a really weird, twisty, windy road to getting to now being part of an award-winning company, but. I think what it does is it should prove to everybody that you can pretty much start anywhere. And those of you that are on this or in this in the Ghost Hunt program are a million miles ahead of where I was at that time. So
I so agree with you, because I know a lot of young women, they ask about, they're so focused on what they need to take on when they go to university, college, or whatever the case may be. And they just kind of forget, what they actually want to do, to listen to, internally, and also let it go, because you don't always end up where you start. You could end up somewhere else. And if you allow yourself for that to happen, then you can end up, you will end up exactly where you're supposed to be. So thank you, Anne. I think I saw Isabella raise her hand. Isabella, you want to ask the question?
Hi, yes. First of all, thank you for coming. Your story is really inspiring, especially since you became something you weren't initially planning to be, and you could change courses no matter how old you got, and you didn't have to know what you wanted to be by 11th grade, which is very nice to hear. So you mentioned having a background in the arts and then going back to school for dentistry, I think. So where did you pick up all of your knowledge and skills in cybersecurity and business?
Right. So I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, and pretty much everyone in my family, except for my sister, have their own businesses. Some they started themselves, or some they were passed on or bought into. But to be a little more specific about cyber, I like I said, it was sort of finding a problem that needed to be solved, and then just sort of being audacious enough to think that I could be a part of it. It was helpful that my brother had a really strong tech background. He already had his own computer company for a lot of years. But one of the first things I did is to start taking courses, started taking a lot of specific cybersecurity certifications specific to healthcare. So I got 7 of those. And then what I felt was really missing was also a really strong understanding of privacy and what privacy compliance meant and privacy laws. So I took what's called a CIPP certification, that's Certified Information Privacy Professional. And it's by the International Association of Privacy Professionals. And that is like the most widely and highly regarded certification for privacy globally. You can even take it specific to your country or region. So I'm certified for that in Canada, which means that not only do I understand what cybersecurity is, privacy is a very important piece of that as well. So it's understanding how the laws and policy fits together with what we need to do in protecting the computer. So it's kind of like bringing together the people and their behaviors with data, as well as securing the systems themselves. So you don't need to have a university degree, by the way, to do any of these certifications. In fact, one of my most impressive techs, this person does not have a degree. It's a guy, he's in his mid-20s, just decided to start gathering up and doing a lot of these, digital badging and specific certifications that were required for our specific industry, which is really amazing nowadays. Is that I think you have a lot more available, especially in this era than 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks. Anybody else have another question? Before anyone else asks the question, while they're thinking about the question they want to ask, I wanted to ask a question, and I know you may or may not know so much about this, but a lot of the young women in our program, outside of the program, young women in general, youth in general, we use social media, when we post so many things on social media. And when it comes to cybersecurity, what are some things that young people should be aware of when they post things on social media? What is something that should be considered private, or you know what I mean, or something that should be like, what's some information that should never be posted, for example, or what are some things that they should kind of be aware of? And I think it's important for them to understand this stuff, and also once you finish with answering this, to kind of address like what happens to the information once it goes out in the cyberspace, right? Like how hard it is once you have all that information out there. Is it easy to take that off? Like, is that going to be there forever? Like, what's happening with all that information?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I almost feel that this younger generation really has a better grasp of it than some people sort of like in their 30s and 40s. Of course, we know what it looks like when we get some of these scam texts or people trying to friend us or connect with us on Instagram. We don't know who the heck they are. They follow you so that you'll follow them back, and then they unfollow you. And sometimes you'll see Facebook accounts that'll ask certain questions to find out what your birth date is, or what your first grade teacher's name is, what the street you grew up on is, what your mother's maiden name is. These are when we see all of this crud coming through our social streams, is really understanding those are for no other reason than to try to gather information to create a profile about us for identity theft. And I think it would always just be a great idea before we answer any of them is to really think about what's the value here. Is there any value in it for me to answer this or to post this? I really get worried when people share location. I know my son does it even on Snapchat. He can look and he can see where any of his friends are at any given point in time. It is dangerous, and I think people know it's dangerous, but then there's something that they get out of it, so they sort of trade off their perception of that danger in order to gain something, engagement, or some sort of validation or something through these posts. I would just hope that everybody, and again, it's not just a younger person thing, would look and think about what the possible outcome is. Put on a hat and think about it. Like, if I was a cyber criminal, how would I find out where somebody is, or what their birth date is, or what their credit card is, or what their password might be? Kind of look at any of those threads and those social media threads or posts, and understand what someone's intention is in doing it. Sometimes it's not that they're going to steal information from you, but your engagement with those posts allows the person who owns that channel to build up a certain following, and then they change the name of the profile and they sell it. So maybe at very least you're helping to be a part of something that's not really above board. When we put information out there, there's a lot of different socials channels that they say, oh, well, the message disappears, or your photo can only be seen once, or I think it's really safe to say that still anything that you put out there really is forever. And again, I feel like I'm saying stuff that people kind of already know, but again, I think we all sort of let our guards down, and we'll put certain things there because we get something out of it. But in most cases, we're giving up some privacy along the way, and every time we do it, that's a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. At the same time, I'm on social media. I do as well, but what I try to do is just think through those things before I either engage or I post something. And the other thing that I do as a parent is I make sure that I leave the decision about privacy to my kid. As far as I don't put pictures of him, that's up to him. It's not up to me to make that decision about his privacy for him. Thank
you. Yeah, no, you did. Thank you. I think another question that I have to follow this. I know that there's, like, let's say you go on Facebook, free account. You go on this free accounts, and like you said, you add your location. We all know that Facebook is not. I hope nobody from Facebook listens to this, but it's like, Facebook is known for having a lot of privacy issues and a lot of selling of their data, like you said, right? And question that I have is, like, if you have a free account, right, and then you have a paid account of like any social media or anything else, is there a difference when it comes to privacy? So, like, so you pay for something versus something that comes out free?
I've definitely seen that in apps. most of the free apps that I've looked at, I mean, because I work in privacy, I do read the policies. Most people don't. And I think what's really awful is that they're designed, these privacy policies are designed specifically to have you give up reading them. They're very long. They're written in language that nobody understands. I'm a privacy professional. I would even call myself an expert, and I've not understood many of them. Sometimes I see a decent job done on privacy, but for the most part, it's not. We are still the product. And what I mean by that is nobody is out there really building an app for the goodness of their heart. At best, those apps are being built for us to help us do certain things, but someone's still making money. At worst, they're not charging us anything, but what we're giving up in exchange is not just our own privacy, but the privacy of anyone in our contact list. So I'm sure you've gone and looked at, for example, I used to play online Scrabble, which is going to make the kids laugh because who wants to play Scrabble, right? But I when they upgraded the app, I could not stomach the privacy policy because it wanted me to allow them access to all of my contacts. That's not my right. I don't have the right to give away somebody else's, them to know who my contacts are. I already see enough problems with email. The thing that we need to understand about email is we're only as safe as the most reckless person that we know. And what I mean by that is if their email gets hacked, we're hacked too. Anything that we've emailed them, right? So, it's like connecting the dots much further out than just, what's happening with ourselves. If you go to download an app and it says, we want permission to have access to your friends list, I say, no, you don't have, right? But still, if everyone else is on Scrabble and you're not, right, we want to. So it's a real big challenge. It's all designed, believe me, like, as much as on the cyber side, we're thinking all day about how to protect. People that are on the other side, they're thinking, either how do I hack somebody or how do I collect a whole pile of data that I can sell to somebody else? This is all going on at the same time. So it's hard because everybody's doing it. But I hope that, in having the conversation, it's just something that people can be a little bit more thoughtful about when they engage. So.
Thank you. Susan, she raised her hand. She has a question. Go ahead,
Okay,
Susan.
My question is about cybercrime and how much money do people make from that? Because if there's cybersecurity, that means there's a huge need for it because there's a lot of cybercrime. And that means cybercrime must be a big enough of a problem to have like cybersecurity. So do people get like a lot of money from this, and why is it really dangerous?
So right now you can go, if you can get someone to invite you to the dark web, you can buy what's called a ransomware kit as an example. So what that looks like is you buy a piece of software, and then if you really want to go wild, you'll buy, here I'm giving them the recipe, right? I hope no one uses this for nefarious reasons. Okay, so you can buy, just like you would buy Microsoft Word, you can buy a ransomware software. And then all you do is you send this to your contacts and you say, oh, look, I got this new thing. It gives you some great new fonts for your design, right? And they download it. It locks their computer, locks up all of their data. And then in order to give them the encryption key, you say, okay, you have to pay me some money, and you have to pay it through Bitcoin. So you would have a Bitcoin account, and you would give them the link to give you $5,000, right? Or so many Bitcoin. And when they do that, then you give them the encryption key and they can unlock their data. What the really big smart people are doing, I guess smart, but it's, you know, they're criminals. They're buying the lists. You know, every time, let's say you were on LinkedIn or Yahoo or Dropbox, you probably had your email be part of a breach, which means you're on a big list. So your email's on a big list. Those lists are being sold. So while you're on there getting your ransomware kit for $300, you're buying this, you're going to buy a big list of email addresses, because now you're going to send it to 50,000 people, and you know that probably 10% of them are going to click on it, and of those, maybe 2% are actually going to download your executable, which is actually ransomware, not font upgrades, right? Is everyone following? Because sometimes I miss pieces of the story and it's not good. I admit that.
Oh, I'm following, yes.
Okay. So yes, it's a $6 trillion problem. You know, imagine if you spent all day doing this, you can make some pretty good money. It's really just like going to a casino. You hit enough times, you're going to get some payback. Of course, yes, it's completely illegal. Nowadays, it is easier to be caught than you think. But some of the big giant ones that you're seeing are actually being executed by like armies of hackers that are state-sponsored hackers. Okay, I'm not afraid to say this. There's certain countries that are bankrolling their efforts on the backs of cyber armies that are just hitting hundreds of thousands of email addresses at a time in order to infiltrate large organizations, which are far more likely to pay big ransoms. They can demand millions of dollars, whereas opposed to, you know, if you're just hitting a small business, you really want to ask for an amount of money that they would be able to pay, right? But even if you're just getting one or two a week, you could make good money. Again, totally illegal, right? But just, it's a huge problem because it is that easy, and there's still enough people in this world that don't understand what it means to download or click on a link that's a bad link or a bad attachment. It's surprising how there's still a lot of people that don't understand what can happen then. That's why it's so effective, and that's why it's such a huge problem.
Thank you so much. That was a really good explanation. And I actually I have a better picture of it now.
Okay, good.
I was going to say, actually, after this session, we're about to create our own LinkedIn accounts. So you just scared us a little bit, but I'm sure that we can do it. Like LinkedIn is one of the social media that is, I wouldn't say it's like Facebook. So I think it would be safe for us to have our LinkedIn account set up today, right, Anne?
I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been extremely important for my career. It has been breached twice during the time that I've been part of LinkedIn. But here's what I do, guys. And, you know, it's hard to do this unless you use a password manager. But I use a password manager. I'm not sure if LastPass might allow you to have it free. But I want to just give you, do we have a moment to just talk about one thing called credential stuffing, Doina?
Yes, okay. Yes.
So let me tell you what credential stuffing is. So let's say I'm a cyber criminal and I get your email address and your password from LinkedIn, okay? Am I going to be able to get into any of your other online accounts with those same credentials? I hope, you know, most people are going to be like, oh yeah, well, you know, I use the same email address and password on my banking, and I use the same on Dropbox, and I use the same on Facebook, and I use the same. So credential stuffing, this is a term used. And again, you know, it's one of the challenges that I have with the cyber industry. They have all these terms that don't really, this one's probably the closest that makes sense. But what it is once I get your credentials from one site, I either manually or use a piece of software to try those same credentials across every other kind of online account there could be, your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your Instagram, your Netflix, your bank, because what I know is a lot of people still use those same email and password combinations in a number of places. So in the olden days, if you got my email address and password from LinkedIn and you tried my Scotiabank bank account, you would have been right into my bank account. Now you can't do this because every single online account I have has a different password. How do I do that? I have to use a password manager that allows me to put a slightly different password on each one. It can create a complex password for you, or what you can sometimes do is create an anchor. Like you could say Captain America 7656 #@, or Captain America blah 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 blah, right? Like, so you could have sort of an anchor passphrase, but then change like the last 6 characters, or at least something like that. But as long as you keep them unique to each of your online accounts, you can't be a victim of credential stuffing. That's what that terminology is. So I think you always hear don't use the same credentials across other accounts. I, in the past, have told people that, but I think that the why is really important, which is what I was just trying to, hopefully that was a clear enough explanation. So
I think it was. Do you guys agree? Was it clear? Did you understand with the passwords? Oh, yeah, I think they did. Well, let me see. Yes, so they got it. Okay, well, Anne, thank you so much for the session. I'm always so grateful for you giving your time to Revolution and supporting these girls. I'm really grateful for that. And thank you for being part of GhostM.
I'm very, like, I'm very impressed with all the girls, all of their hard work and passion and giving up part of their summer. And I hope that at some point I'll be able to see some of the outcomes of projects and so on. But I'm seeing the chat column here. Someone says they're going to go change their thing. And I think parting word here, nowadays, hackers don't hack systems as much as they hack people. That is what social engineering is. They're more likely to get into your system by tricking you than by figuring out something through basic traditional hacking techniques. So just be aware, stay safe. Good luck, everybody. And Doina, thank